Hey, it's time. Time for what, you ask? It's... Actually, let's not do this bit again. Let's be more serious this time. Recently, I've been playing a lot of Island of Insight. What is this game? Island of Insight is an open-world puzzle game with over 10,000 puzzles. Is what most reviews would say. But in reality, it's a lot higher than that. And I mean a lot higher. If we do not count the puzzles that generates automatically, the actual count is around the 90,700 mark. Almost doubling what the front page says. And I solved every single one of them. Was it a mistake? Maybe. In this video, I'll talk about some tips, what I didn't like, and a conclusion of my 488 hours adventure of this game. You can also consider this like a guide, as I'll be talking about each puzzle types. But before I start, I have two things to add. If for some reason you want to also beat all these puzzles, don't. If the number of puzzles and hours of playtime won't enough to deter you, you need to be ready to play the game 2 to 3 hours every day. You see, the game has daily puzzles for almost each type and refresh every 20 hours. However, refreshing puzzles doesn't mean new puzzles will appear every time, so missing puzzles could be problematic. I had to wait for weeks to solve a puzzle I didn't do when it first appeared. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that I used two mods, the offline restorer mod and the save stats tool. You cannot do everything without the restoration mod because the game never spawns some puzzles. As for the tool, it has many maps showing locations of your remaining puzzles, and let me tell you that there is some nasty puzzle locations. Anyway, it's time to start the journey from the beginning. Before we start, you need to do as many daily quests as possible every time you start your game. My biggest mistake was to ignore those. At the end of my journey, I didn't have enough money to buy all the cosmetic. I had to play the game even more thanks to that. Alright, let's start for real. The first step is to unlock all the puzzle types before working on the daily puzzles. You can see which place unlocks puzzle type in the map. Just hover with your mouse on a point of interest. Afterward, I recommend to stay in the first area and to do most of the available puzzles every day. Except for the hidden stuff, which is annoying at first. Repeat the process until all the available daily puzzles are solved and you want to do more. When that happens, start working on the second area. After solving most of the daily puzzles in that area, you can go to the third, and so on. When a majority of the daily puzzles have been solved, we can move on to the next step, the clusters and the statics. This is the player's card. You can check yours by using the save stat tool. It's a great way to track progress and you'll need it. The hubs are the daily puzzles, and the statics are enclaves, trials, big scary logic grids that are always here, and more. Luckily for us, the tool has a map of all the statics. However, the clusters work differently. The group of hard logic grids that are located here, they also spawn differently than the daily puzzles. Every time you load up the game, there will be different puzzles. It doesn't mean that a new unsolved puzzle will appear though. which is why I recommend to do multiple short sessions of the game if you can. Lastly, if you look at your player card, there's also a section that tracks all the unique armillary rings in the temple and all the unlocked cosmetics. Can't find the remaining cosmetic in the shop? Change your avatar's gender and make sure to look at all the sub-menus. Phew, that's a lot of things to do. Here's a priority order to make things easier. During the solving process in part 1, I learned a few useful tricks that you can use on some puzzle types. I do not have tips for the matchbox, hidden pentad, match 3, leitmotiv, glide rings, and shifting mosaic, aside from telling you to look at their respective maps. If there's one, of course. First, the Wandering Echo. I found the echo to be very easy to solve, but slightly difficult to find. Some can be a bit problematic, like climbing stuff, or easily losing sight of it. My counter would be to use the warp beacon on a useful spot. Preferably a spot where you're having trouble to reach. If you cannot find this puzzle, use the map. Next is the Hidden Archway, Hidden Ring, and Hidden Cube. Honestly, I'm not a fan of those things, as they're not puzzles. They're just hidden objects to find in the world with 3 different variants. My tip is to not use the map early. There's hundreds of spots to look at, and you do not want to check all of them for just a few remaining objects. You should look for them on your own at the beginning. Only use the map when you have less than 40 objects remaining in the variant. It should make things faster and a lot easier. Before we move on, I have one last remark. The map has a flaw. It doesn't tell you the height of the object's location, so make sure to look up and down when you're checking these. Armillary Rings is one of the 2 puzzles who automatically generates itself in the hub. So there's not a lot to say about it, except for the Temple of Infinity Rings. If you want to get all of them, you need to spend around an hour on just solving those puzzles in the temple. Next on the list is the most common puzzle in the game, the Logic Grid. There's over 3,000 of them just on the daily puzzle section. To make things worse, the map cannot help you, as the puzzles are randomly scattered on the map. It's not truly random, it's more like there's a lot of script placement. You get the idea. Finding and solving all of them is a tall order. Well, at least back when the mod was brand new. Thanks to version 1.3, there's a cheat that allows you to locate any incompleted logic grid near you. Needless to say that it would have made my life a lot easier. Anyways, it's still a lot of work, and some of the puzzles can be difficult to solve without struggling. So, here's my odd tip for you. Use the hint system. Yeah, really. Use foresight when it's too tough. And I know it doesn't feel right, and you're going to ruin good challenges, but let me ask you a question. Would you prefer to use hints and solve all the daily puzzles in time? Or would you prefer to take 30 minutes on one single puzzle, run out of your available time, and wait an eternity for the missing puzzles to come back? I chose the former options, which probably saved me a couple of months. I would advise the same, but you do you. The Sentinel Stones and Crystal Labyrinth are easier to find, but I have one small remark about it. You may have to wait a few days or weeks to solve them all. Just be patient and carry on. There's not a lot to say about the Skydrop, except for the Skydrop challenge. If you want the best medal, you need a bit of luck, some determination, and to focus on the sphere that don't shrink a lot when you get closer. It's usually a good sign, and means that the correct spot is close. I decided to add the pattern grid, the music grid, and memory grid in a group because they're all similar to each other. They're hard to find and annoying to solve from time to time. I also recommend to use the hint system, but to also press the interactive button as much as you want. You know, like the one that plays music or shows the color to remember. Yes, you will lose the bonus mastery points, but you shouldn't care. I'll explain at the last part of this video why. I really like the flow orbs, especially when I have to get to the highest medals. You can't be bothered to do it, that's fine. The game considers the puzzle solved once you get a medal. If you want a better time, you should glide as much as you can because it's faster. However, some flow orbs can be strict, and you'll need to restart a lot. My tip to reset runs faster is to use the warp beacon where you start your run. And no, you cannot use it to cheat. The attempt will stop if you do. Only teleport if you need to restart. Next is the sightseer. To me, solving a sightseer is not a big deal, but finding one could take me a lot of time. They can randomly spawn in some of the most evil places in the game. It can be extremely far away from the location you need to find, or even outside of its designated area. The only useful tip that I can give is to restart the game if you cannot find it. This will change the location and hopefully make things easier. If you can't solve the puzzle, drop the sightseer and use the warp beacon. The sightseer should update and show your beacon if you place it right. If you're still having trouble, use the map. The location and the direction to look at will be shown. The rolling block puzzles are literally like the Sentinel Stones and Labyrinth. The only difference is that I found these frustrating to do sometimes. Solving the puzzle backwards can make things easier, but it's difficult to visualize. I wish you good luck. I only have a warning for the phasic dial. Be careful of the sun's reflection. Let me explain. When you solve the dial, the ring around the puzzle turns bright. This makes it difficult to see when the sun reflects it. Because of that, it's hard to tell if you've done the puzzle already. Interact with the puzzle instead of looking at a distance. It's better to be 100% sure. Chi-Aura puzzles aren't too difficult to solve. You just have to guess one of the 4 approaches. Flying into it, crouching towards it, standing still next to it, or going backwards into it. However, the terrain can make things annoying. When that happens, you can place a warp beacon next to it. Back away so it can reappear, warp, and quickly click on it before it fully disappears. This strat is very powerful and makes it trivial to solve most of them. Saving the worst for last, we have the infamous Morphic Fractal puzzles. Every time that I see a Morphic Fractal, I die a little bit on the inside. They can be as frustrating as the rolling block. Looking at the tiny details of the solution and trying to find a similar spot is not so easy. Some can even be similar but are not even close. My advice? just move your mouse around and left click from time to time. It'll work. Eventually. No, really, that's the advice. For those who don't know how this puzzle works, you have to imagine a circle. In this circle, there's 2 points of interest. One of them is your current view, and the other is the solution of the puzzle. Your goal is to get your current view close enough to the solution. The problem is that you cannot see this circle. This is why my brute force advice works. I recommend to do it when the puzzle is too hard, because this process takes time. As I was getting close to the end of my questing spree, I started to edit this video and realized that I forgot some important information. For example, the offline mod has a very nice quality of life. It automatically solves any puzzle you previously solved. However, doing any daily quest is difficult. You won't be able to do most of them at the end of the journey. Luckily for you, if you look at the known issues section of the mod, it will tell you how to change this quality of life. Be careful when you do the flow orbs. The game will overwrite your best time, and if you get lazy like me and achieve a gold medal or worse, it will also downgrade your medals, which means that you can lose the platinum medal unless you ignore the flow orbs or get the platinum time requirement. But oh no! You forgot to platinum a flow orb, and it's gone now. You don't even remember where it was. What are you going to do? Don't panic. The Save Stats mod is here to save the day. In the output file, there's an Excel telling you everything you need to do. All you have to do is find the location of your missing flow orb with the flow orbs/all map. Also, when you're solving a sky drop, I didn't precise that the small orbs are usually close to the ground. Be mindful that it is not always the case. The game has a bunch of odd decisions, but I'm not a fan of it. Like, why did he have multiplayer in the first place? Or why the puzzles stay unsolved after closing the game, or why is the mastery so awful? Seriously, they didn't even try to balance things out. After solving all the puzzles, half of my mastery levels didn't reach 50%. A fourth didn't even make it to 25%. Why is this happening? Well, it's because we were lazy and didn't bother doing what I did. I know I'm being mean, but like I said at the beginning, some puzzles cannot spawn without the mod, which proves what I'm saying. I could talk about more lazy decisions like the SSD problems, and the devs not doing anything about it for months, but I'm ready to give my conclusion, and the change I would have done. Despite what I said, I still like the game. It's not often where we get an open world puzzle game. When I was solving all the daily puzzles, it was very addictive. I was solving everything that I looked at and spent hours without realizing it. Honestly, if the dev didn't abandon their community and made an effort, it would have been amazing. Personally, I would have decreased the requirement for maxing out masteries, except for the logic grid, which should be increased instead. Speaking of, I think there's too many logic grid and not enough for the other types. Memory grid has only 220. Another idea would be to gain mastery when you solved a puzzle you've never done before. My last and most obvious improvement would be to tell the player that they've already solved the puzzle, just like in the mod. This is my card after buying the last cosmetic. The masteries are incomplete and will stay that way forever. I would like to thank everyone who worked on the mod and tools for this game. Without them, this video wouldn't exist. As I'm writing this, the 1.4 version got released today. This mod is still active, and will probably change even more stuff in the distant future. Lastly, I have to say it again. Don't do this to yourself. And don't try to max out all the mastery. Unless the modders do something about it. That's going to be it for me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!